Cool. And welcome to Chattering with Nicholas Vince. And this month we have the wonderful Barbie Wilde chattering with Nicholas Vince with the Luggage in the Crypt interview. Say hello, Barbie.
Hello.
Thank you very much. I shall start the interview in a couple of minutes. Before I do, I just wanted to share some news with everybody. So the first thing is to announce that I will be doing what is so far my only UK appearance this year. I'm going to be at the Living Dead Con in Liverpool on October the 11th. It's a one-day convention. I shall be there all day. I shall be selling photographs and selling books, etc., and signatures, etc. So please come and join me there. There will be a link below the video with all the details of this going up immediately after this. We finish at around about 8 o'clock on my Facebook, on the Nicholas Vince Facebook page, and I'll also share it there. The other thing to announce is that on August 24th, Simon Bamford will be joining me again for the Luggage in the Crypt interview, which I'm excited about. But before that, on the I haven't got the date up. The 14th of September. I do have the date. 14th of September, I'm going to do the first of my film review. My group hangout on air film reviews where everyone can come in and give their, or 9 people can come in and give their views on the movie See No Evil. And the reason we're doing that one is because See No Evil 2. Oh, and something is bonging. Why is something bonging? I have no idea. See No Evil 2 is coming out from the Soska sisters, who Barbie and I are tremendously fond of. They're great, really great, talented young ladies. So we'll be reviewing that probably in November, or once the films come out. The other thing I wanted to promote is the Indie Horror TV Kickstarter. That's going at the moment, Indie Horror TV. Barbie and I did a really cool hangout with them, and we got given coffee and mugs and so on. We had great. They've been doing a great job for the last couple of years, but they need to find a new home. So there'll be details of the Indie Horror TV Kickstarter as well. And the other thing I wanted to mention is this. Hello Kinski, Andrew Yazus, who designed this lovely T-shirt. He's now got a store with little figurines and artwork and so on. Oh, and the other thing, sorry, I forgot. The Indie Horror TV. 2 very special things. This is a chatterer. I don't know if you can see how well you can see this. This is a chatterer number 2. This is a chatterer number 1. I will be donating these to the Kickstarter for Indie Horror TV, signed. Those are incredibly rare. I hardly ever see the chatterer number 2. And yes, now last but not least is something that Barbie is going to tell you about, a bad medicine, which is not the movie with Steve Guttenberg. This is something else entirely. Go, Barbie.
Hi. Yes, I'm going to be starring in a movie called Bad Medicine. It's and Indiegogo campaign starts on August 31st to get some funding for it. It's probably one of the most audacious and visually exciting scripts I've ever read, and I play a rather dubious physical therapist. So that would have been interesting. Psychotherapist. Anyway, and it's wonderful. So check it out. Just follow me on Facebook, and you can see all the details for that. Also, Nico, needed to just say, you mentioned that you were interviewing Simon on August 24th.
I meant September. It's next month. I've probably got the date wrong. Yes, I've definitely got the date wrong, haven't I? I've done it again. Yeah. Thank you, Barbie. I mean September.
No, I never know what day it is, so this is so exciting that I actually caught you out on hold on, that's the day. Is Simon coming? Cool.
I've had that. Yeah, I've had that staring at me on the notice board all afternoon because I thought there was something wrong with it, but couldn't quite work out what it was.
Exactly. Okay. Listen, I just want to point out that this thing I'm sucking on is my water bottle. It's not. It doesn't have vodka in it or anything. It's just, you know.
Thank you for sharing that with the group, Barbie.
Well, no, it's just I'm going to have to do it periodically, so I just wanted to make sure that people understood why I'm doing this.
I'm very jealous because I've just suddenly realised water. I have forgotten to bring up water.
Oh, no.
Never mind. If I start choking, I'll bellow for Craig, and he's usually very good at coming up, or text him or something to bring me water. That's how we communicate in the house. Anyway, right. So let's crack on with the luggage in the crypt interview. Barbie, so the first thing I want to ask you before we get into your books and the choices, what is your view of the afterlife? What do you think happens?
Okay, now you very sweetly sent me the questions in advance but I mean I know all this stuff anyway but when people say, oh, what favorite books do you have? I have a tendency to go Thorn, like the bunnies did. And what was the film with the bunnies?
The
Wide
film with the
eyes.
Watership Down?
Thank you. I knew it started with a W. And so I thought, I'm going to write everything down, but I don't need to know, that's kind of an important thing. Now, I was raised I came from a family of ministers in the Episcopalian religion, and my mother was a lapsed Catholic, so you can imagine, right, the upbringing I had. Gloriously dyslexic, not dysfunctional, sorry, I'm dyslexic. And I was a believer, but mostly through fear. And so now I've come to the conclusion that when we die, it will be, as Raymond Chandler, or was it Dashiell Hammett, I can't remember, said so eloquently, the big sleep. It will be oblivion. There will be nothing. We're just organisms that will be absorbed back into the planet because matter cannot be created or destroyed. So we will go on in some form. Now, whether that's going to be a soul or not, who knows? Mm-hmm. But I have a tendency to think that religions have conjured up this glorious afterlife, to explain the unexplainable. Now that's the rational thing. If I want to think ideally, the afterlife is full of fluffy pink clouds and palm trees where we can eat and drink as much as we want without worrying about calories or alcoholism, and we get to meet up with our dearly beloved lost ones, and we don't see any nasty people like Ted Bundy or Stalin. That's the ideal vision. But what I really think, and this, I hope if I do that, I hope I don't make any sense, is that basically it will just be the big sleep.
It'll just be the big sleep. Okay, that makes yeah, I can completely understand that. And met a number of people who have similar ideas. Okay.
Yeah, because really we're no different than lions, are we? Or chimpanzees. Why would we go to heaven and not,
I think absolutely. I think you're making an incredibly good point. Then you just suddenly reminded me that Roald Dahl, the children's author, I was listening to a biography of him, and one of the reasons he stopped being a Catholic believer was because a priest had told him his pet dog wouldn't go to heaven. And he was so heartburdened over I think his pet dog. It may have been another animal. But
have you ever seen a film? Have you ever seen a film called Inherit the Wind? I think it's Inherit the Wind. And in it's about the Scope monkey trials.
Yes, I have with Spencer Tracy.
Yes, isn't it glorious? And Frederick Marsh.
It's wonderful.
And there's the bit where the guy just says he doesn't believe in God anymore because this priest told him that this unbaptized baby would go to hell or the other place that's limbo because he wasn't baptized. And he just thought, and he told the parents this, and he just thought, this is insane. This doesn't make any sense. The baby was blameless. So it's interesting. I didn't know that about Roald Dahl. It's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, for the purposes of this game, we're going to assume that you have got this wonderful, magnificent exit, and you're allowed to take things into the crypt with you.
So, with the palm trees and the fluffy pink clouds.
With the so you can sit under your palm tree, reading your books, watching your videos, having this amazing heavenly players playing all the things. So we'll start with the books that you've chosen, and I'm just going to screen share this so that everyone can see this. Sorry, it's not full, but this was your first choice, Barbie. Colin Wilson, A Criminal History of Mankind. Why did you choose that one?
Because it's hours and hours of fun. It's still up there, by the way. Is that okay?
That's right. I'm going to get rid
Yeah.
of it right
Oh,
now.
good,
There
good,
we
good.
are.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, because it's like this big, right? It's huge. You
Okay.
could choose. Oh, everybody chooses the collected works of Shakespeare, right? And I love Shakespeare, and he's got a lot of crime in it. But my fascination is with the criminal mind, and it is an extraordinary history of how we got to be where we are.
Hmm.
But we are, you know, as this quote I mentioned to you a little while ago, sort of risen killer apes. And it takes us back to Neanderthal times about how, we developed the idea of how we began to think like mammals and like humans. I mean, it is a true history of mankind, but then it gets into all the sort of sticky bits and the violent bits of, great criminals of mankind like Genghis Khan and Alexander the Great, people that are revered as amazing conquerors, but actually they killed hundreds of thousands of people. They're not heroes. They're not great commanders. They're just mass murderers, you know. And I just find it fascinating. And of course, it goes into Jack the Ripper, all the famous serial killers, but also politicians like Stalin, like well, he was really bad, Stalin. He killed millions of people. So, but it's just fascinating. I am, considering I'm so blonde that I'm actually very interested in, in, in the criminal mind and the dark side. It wasn't Luke Skywalker I was interested in. It was Darth Vader.
Right.
And it
Right.
wasn't necessarily Sherlock Holmes. I loved Sherlock Holmes. But I just thought, why did Moriarty become Moriarty? I actually invented a backstory for him so I could, just figure out why. Because, Conan Doyle never explained why Moriarty was what he was. So I invented a story. He'd lost his wife and gone crazy, and he became a criminal genius, And it's because I wanted to give him a bit more personality. So I've always been interested in motivations of people, not just criminals. So it is just, hours of fun. And if you're going to be stuck in eternity reading a book, you might as well get something that's a bit interesting.
Yeah, this is, and as you say, for eternity, a book that thick seems like a very sensible choice.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds fun. And did you is this something you encountered as a teenager, or is this something that you came across when you were researching?
Okay, I can only blame Tim Dry, my friend, your friend,
Our friend.
our friend who played a whipped character in Star Wars. Sorry, whoops, wrong. So he also played the monster in a notorious British video nasty called Extra.
Indeed.
He gave me, or loaned me, but I still have it. What does that mean? I stole this book from him when I first met him. Don't tell him.
He's possibly watching, and in fact, he's just, whilst you've mentioned Tim, that's a great quick outside just to say that Tim has agreed to do a luggage in the crypt interview as well.
Good,
I just got that confirmation just before we came on air because I'm just useless at asking people.
Well, he'll be
I'm really excited about it. Yeah.
He'll be a very, very amusing guest. Anyway, this was a book by Colin Wilson called The Order of the Assassin. And it starts out with the assassins that were sort of in the Middle East, and they went ordered by the old man in the mountain, and it went out to, people who were, mafia assassins and stuff like that. And I've read about 17 books by Colin Wilson, and some of them, his fiction is very interesting. One was made into a film called Life Force. That was space vampires, starring another friend of mine, Peter Firth. And some of his fiction is interesting. His nonfiction is great. He's written a couple books that are considered quite great, the occult and mysteries. But to me, it's his true crime stuff. And I still have the same copy I bought 20, 30 years ago. But when I was researching my novel, The Venus Complex, shameless plug, which was about a guy who decides to become a serial killer, I thought I just got to go back and read these books again. And that was my first port of call because, as you know, any writer says, if you get writer's block, just go and research.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Cool. All right, so that's your first choice. I'm now just going to, we'll go on to your second choice, if we may. And I'm just going to screen share that for the folks at home. And this is Patricia Highsmith's The Talented Mr. Ripley.
Yes.
So why? Now, I've seen the movie. I've not actually read the book, and I've seen one of the later movies. Why this book?
Okay. I came to Patricia. Well, at first I'd seen Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train when I was a kid on TV or something, and going, oh my God, this is really a sick concept. Two complete strangers meet, and one of them proposes. You've got a wife you want to get rid of. I got a dad I can't stand. Let's crisscross. Let's trade murders. Right? Mm-hmm. Now this concept was written by Patricia Highsmith at the age of 25 in like 1955. This writer, Patricia Highsmith, was an extraordinary woman who wrote not only Strangers on a Train, but The Talented Mr. Ripley, Ripley Down Under, or Underneath Ripley, he wrote a bunch of Ripley books. And she was a lesbian, and she was in love with a male philosopher who was quite notorious. His name I can't remember at the moment. She ended up living in Europe for most of her life. She had very sort of extreme views, but her writing is like a dream. And after I've seen Plein Soleil, which is the French version with Alain Delon. And of course, Ripley doesn't get away with it in that movie because it's the 50s. But of course, in The Talented Mr. Ripley with the divine Matt Damon and the gorgeous Jude Law, he does get away with it. Sorry for the spoilers, everybody. But it's a lovely portrait of a psychopath, and I'm interested in psychopathic behavior because I am the opposite of being a psychopath. I'm too empathic. But I read the book after I saw the Matt Damon film, and I went, this book is like that thin. It's tiny.
Tiny.
And every detail in the movie is in there. It was the most beautiful, descriptive, poetic, and yet saying brutal kind of writing. It was glorious, and I thought, this woman's a genius.
I'm really... Also?
Well, also, you're 25 and you come up with a crisscross murder thing. What a mind! I just think she's an extraordinary writer, and she really is great. And I can't even touch the hem of her garment, but very kindly, the editor of Fangoria, edit that out. Fangoria has compared my writing to hers, which is like, wow, I thank you so much. But she's what I aspire to be. Her writing's just so beautiful.
Really, you've encouraged me to not only read that one, but to go back and to read Strangers on the Train as well, because I saw the stage version, which they did in the West End earlier this year, which was produced by Barbara Broccoli. Chubby Broccoli's daughter.
Was it good? Well, I mean,
it was fascinating. It was absolutely amazing. It was done in a black and white set, and everyone was dressed in black and white and grey, except for the wife, who had the most amazing red hair. And it was, obviously a lot of money spent on it, and big revolving set, and it kind of felt like watching a movie, and but it was so different from the movie, and just really kind of played up this kind of pseudo gay relationship that's going on between those two men. Relationship, very strange. And again, another psychopath, completely another psychopath.
Yeah. Well, I think in the movie there was touches of that in Bruno, but he was he was like a very ambivalent character who was actually quite a sensualist, which in other words, he probably would have played both.
I mean, well, if you consider, his relationship with his mother was not a healthy one. A little bit too much motherly love there. And of course the later film, Ripley's Game with an actor whose name entirely
John
escapes.
Malkovich.
John Malkovich.
Yes.
It's just brilliant. In fact, I heard it on radio recently, and again, it's just as gripping. This thing about if you are chosen by Ripley, there is no escape. He will just, for the weirdest, most insignificant thing, apparently.
But she was actually considered, because it was considered immoral for the bad guy to get away with it in the 50s. And that's why a friend of mine just said, oh, I just think it's so creepy that a 25-year-old, she's actually a very religious American woman, 25-year-old woman could write, a book like Strangers on a Train. And I just go, how wonderful. That atmosphere, and that's probably why she ended up moving to Europe too, because it was a little bit looser,
And also, 25 to me doesn't seem that young. I think there's something really curious.
It is to me now.
I spent 16 years working with 25-year-olds. They just, they seem normal to me. But it just doesn't seem that yet. I think at that age you are questioning, you're challenging things. Your mind is going. And teenagers have this wonderful dark spirit too. Many teenagers have this wonderful dark spirit, which I think goes into the early 20s.
But you know what? She always fed her darkness, and that's cool. She wasn't afraid. Being American, she actually wasn't afraid of it. And when you think like most women in the 50s, one of my favorite films, which I haven't mentioned in the next bit, is Pleasantville. Have you seen Pleasantville?
Yes. Yeah, years and years ago. But yes.
Okay. Patricia, not Patricia, I never said Patricia Neal. Joan Allen plays the wife of, and she just reminded me so much of my mom. Hi, dear, here are the drinks, da-da-da-da. I live a life of quiet desperation, but I have to have a smile on my face. And that was 50s America, And I think that, it was that somebody broke away from that. As someone, again, another writer that I really admire is Gore Vidal. He broke away from it, and he wrote books that were really interesting, in a time that was very, very, but also, exactly. And, scripts and things like that. Another writer I really admire is Rod Serling, of course.
Yes,
but
of course.
He has nothing to do with the fact that he was, but again, he sort of perverted sort of certain imagery. You see, like the monsters on Maple Street. There's all these little families living together, and they're all adorable until they think there's aliens landing, and then they all become complete barbarians.
Yes,
that's subverting what the prevailing thing was in America at that time. We're all happy. It's the 50s. We all have big cars. Gas is cheap. Everyone is lovely.
Yeah, and I remember them. Yes, I remember seeing that black and white version in the Twilight Zone.
Yes.
And just chilling, and found it absolutely fascinating. I remember, and I must have been a kid when I saw it. Right, because we
better hurry up.
Yeah, I'm going to have to be strict.
Okay.
We'll concentrate. We'll move on to the third book now, which I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to have to click here, and I'm just going to. And now this is a book I had not heard of at all. This is A Movable Feast by Ernest Hemingway.
Okay.
Tell me about this.
Okay, this is one of my favorite authors in the world because he is muscular, spare, kind of the male version of Patricia Highsmith, in that normally someone, she's the female version of Hemingway, but it's very spare writing. But you get the, in a few sentences, all the description you need is in your head. To me, that's wonderful. The guy who wrote The Turn of the Screw, Henry James, he's a nightmare to me. He takes 4 pages to describe a room. I've fallen asleep. What room? And so, what room was it? Oh no. So the fact that they made this wonderful film called The Innocents from The Turn of the Screw is a triumph of filmmaking. Movable Feast is about his adventures living in Paris with his very young wife and child in the war. He's a World War I veteran and correspondent. He goes off to fight in Spain. He does all these things. That's not in Movable Feast. Movable Feast is all about Paris. Paris is one of my all-time favorite cities in the world. And to read about sitting in Dumago, having a coffee and a cognac and nursing it all day long and no one bothering you, and you just write your great American novel. It's a wonderful, it's a glorious, sort of true, I guess. He synthesizes his true experiences and puts them down on a page so beautifully. It's sort of autobiographical, but I'm sure he changes the names to protect the guilty. But it's a beautiful book, and I can't recommend it highly enough. It's kind of unpopular to like Hemingway because, oh, isn't he just like this macho asshole who goes out killing innocent animals? Well, he might have done that in Africa, but this is a man who survived like a plane crash in Africa. He fought in a war, or at least he reported wars. He lived the life of, and yet he was so insecure. And but also he wrote one of the greatest novels of the 20th century, The Old Man and the Sea, in 2 weeks. Bastardo. And
all writers are just going, oh God, I want to do that.
And he got a Nobel Prize for literature for that. But he had terrible writer's block. He suffered, and he was an interesting writer, and I just love his work. And I don't care if it's like not a feminist thing to like him. I like Patricia Highsmith. That's feminism.
Yeah. I think
it balances out. I think he's wonderful.
Brilliant. All right.
Honorable mentions have to go to Raymond Chandler and Dashiell Hammett.
Okay. And I'm sure when you're up on your pink fluffy cloud with the palm trees and so on, somebody will lend you another book. Apart from these three, there'll be a lending library up in heaven, I'm sure.
Kindle.
We'll have Heavenly Kindle. I'm sure Amazon would support that. Yeah. No, absolutely.
They've already got the concession.
This is what the drones are for. The drones that Amazon have been advertising, it's actually to take the books up to
heaven.
And the big fluffy clouds. Okay.
Moving right along.
I'm going to share the first choice of film, except I forgot to get... Oh no, I can't believe I did this. Okay, folks, I'm not going to share because I've just suddenly realized, doofus that I am, that I've skipped a section. But I think people will know this movie. This is a movie called Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock. My fault. I forgot to get the poster. My bad.
If people don't know Psycho, then shame. Okay, I'll zip through this because I think people can sort of see a trend with the whole. Basically, I like movies with psychos in them, But to me, again, it's just because I consider myself, a really scaredy cat kind of person, and I worry about people, and I care. I'm very empathic, and so you get something like a psychopath, and you go, "Wow, how does that work?" It fascinates me. But I think Psycho is still one of the best movies ever made about a psycho, and I think seeing Alfred Hitchcock's what was it called Hitch or Hitchcock?
I was going to say Hitchcock with
the movie
Anthony
Hopkins.
Thank you.
And Helen Mirren. About the making of that film, no one wanted him to make that film. He had to basically put out his checkbook and buy all the books up, but it was just it is a wonderful book. I think Anthony Perkins gives a wonderful performance. Janet Leigh is marvelous. John Gavin looks great without his shirt, and it's a wonderful exploration of the psychopathic mind, and it's so beautifully shot. It's still, and the soundtrack by Bernard Herrmann. Wow.
Yeah, I guarantee anyone who's watched the movie at this point has got ding,
Exactly.
Yeah, you can't. How can you not have? Even when it's chocolate sauce that they used in the shower, going down the plug hole.
And it took them a week. It took them a week to film the shower scene. I think the only other psycho film that is in the same well, not quite in the same league, but I do love American Psycho because Christian Bale's performance is so delightful. To me, in many ways, both the films are an improvement on the books. I've actually
Oh,
read the original
interesting.
book by Robert Bloch, and I do love Robert Bloch. Joseph Stefano did the screenplay, but it's and American Psycho is a brilliant book, but I think the synthesis of that book into the film made it a better work of art.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay. All
because there's
right.
some really misogynistic, nasty shit in American Psycho, the book.
It, and yet all I can remember is the discussion about business cards. Uh, well, and him running naked with a chainsaw, obviously, but
Yeah,
and all the sit-ups and so on. But yeah, it's that discussion about business cards
yeah.
and the raised print and the type of paper that's being used and how this is used for pecking order. It
Although
just sums up the 90s, the 80s.
yeah, sure, but I do want to point out that I'm not saying that Bret Easton Ellis is a misogynist. I'm
No,
just saying there were certain sections in the book that I found very hard because of the violence towards women. And
yeah,
God knows, ain't there enough of that in horror movies and all that stuff. But and there is some in the film,
yeah.
But anyway, we're talking. We should
Yes.
move on to the next
Okay,
one.
and now your next choices are interesting because you've put Casablanca or Laura.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, you
Sorry.
have to choose one. Which one would it be?
Oh dear. Well, Casablanca has got Bogey and Ingrid Bergman, and it's a wonderful masterpiece of black and white, and it's got all these great themes of heroism, and it was saying to America, you know, you've got to stand up and be counted. It was before America entered into the war, or it was about that time. It's a beautiful film, and I studied it with uh, Robert McKee in his
Mm.
story structure class, which has been made great fun of in the film adaptation. I went beat by beat through this movie, and so I am very fond of it. It's a beautiful film and cracking dialogue. It's it's a wonderful film.
Mm.
Laura is a film yet again. It's black and white. It's beautiful. It's got Vincent Price in it, and
I'm trying to remember this film. Tell me a little bit about it. I can't.
okay, Gene Tierney and I can't remember the. Oh, and it's got Dana Andrews in it. She is supposedly murdered, and he starts falling in love with her because of her portrait now in her life.
I've heard
And
of it.
and
I've not
Vincent,
seen it. Yeah, yeah.
oh, you must see it. It's a wonderful early performance from Vincent Price. You will love him in this. He's so wonderfully weak and adorable in it. And as a character, and I can't remember the name, it might come to me, called Waldo Lydecker, and he's a very acidic columnist who basically breaks up every relationship because he's obsessed by Laura. It is basically about a psychopath who is obsessed with Laura and the valiant police officer who saves her. So, which movie have I seen more? Laura. I've seen Laura more
Okay,
times. I watch it over and over again because it's a wonderful movie. It's a great journey. Casablanca is also a great journey and a classic.
cool. All right then. And your third
I'm not
choice.
cheating.
And your third choice is any film by Quentin Tarantino. If I
I
had to choose,
know.
you have to choose Jackie Brown.
Yes, because it's adorable and it's a strong female character, and
Ah,
it's got a crackingly wonderful performance by Bridget Fonda in it, where she's tormenting poor Robert De Niro. Louis, Louis, where's the car, Louis? Where did you park it, Louis? And then she goes, and it's wonderfully violent, and it's funny, and it's got this great relationship between Pamela. Oh shit, Pam Fox, Pam
to be
Grier,
honest, I've
Pam
watched
Grier.
I've watched one Quentin Tarantino film, and that is Reservoir Dogs, and I found that so upsetting, because, particularly because like a week before I ever got to see it. Um, a big mate of mine, we decided that our theme tune was Stuck in the Middle with You, and that was
Oh
going to be our
no,
tune.
that's very funny. Oh, poor
And it's
you.
just kind of like,
Oh,
I can never feel the same way about that tune again without.
no, no.
Which and I'm surprised you didn't choose that because it's got such wonderful psychopath in it.
Oh, well,
Um,
funny enough, it was between Reservoir Dogs and Jackie Brown,
right.
um, because I came away from that film feeling completely exhilarated.
Uh-huh.
Um, Maybe it's because I'm 5'2" and I'll probably never kill anybody. But it's like the Napoleon syndrome or something. It's like, oh wow. But it was fascinating. I'd never seen a film like that. And from Dusk Till Dawn, Pulp Fiction, Inglourious Bastards. Whoa, that goes someplace. But it's a
I've seen,
fantasy.
yeah, no, I've seen From Dusk to Dawn. No, I enjoyed that. That was great as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
Tarantino wrote that.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
so
acted it.
yeah, and also he wrote True Romance as well, which is good, but again directed by somebody else. But no, I think he's got a unique vision. I think he's and also the Kill Bill 1 and 2s and stuff. I think he's wonderful, and he's created his own genre. And how many directors can do that? How many can you just say, oh, Hitch, Tarantino,
Mm.
Ford, okay, with all his westerns and stuff, the Searchers. But I'm sure there are a lot of wonderful European directors that I can't remember at the moment. The guy who directed Matter of Life and Death, Powell
Mm.
Pressburger. These guys, they put their imprint on a film, and Tarantino does that, and I love his stuff. It's terribly violent, I know, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's your choices. I'm just the guy. I'm just the gatekeeper here. I'm not commenting on this. I am going to hurry you along though
Yeah,
because I've just
sure,
noticed
sure.
we've only got 20 minutes to
No,
go.
no.
It's the usual. I knew this, and I have to say now, folks, I think the last choice that you're going to see is going to be one of the most ironic. But this choice is Stephen Berkoff's East, and this is a theatre show. So
Yeah.
tell me about. No, I know very little. I've never seen this performed.
Okay.
But yeah, so tell us about this one, Barbie.
Okay, I saw this. I'd just come to London. It's 1977. I am a hippie. I am a pre-Raphaelite girl wearing green, hennaed hair. I'm wafting around. I love Kate Bush. I go and see this, and I go, oh my God. It is a mash of physical theater, mime, East End Shakespearean, oh, methinks he has the face like an asshole of an elephant. I mean, that's one line that will always stick with me. But they speak like they're Shakespearean, but
It's
it's,
brought in verse. The whole
yes.
play is in verse. Yeah.
And it was brilliant, and I was just so taken with it. And a friend of mine said there are mime classes in Covent Garden, the dance center. So I went along, and that's where I met Tim Dry, my oldest friend. We did a mime piece together. And I later became part of this mime company that he was with, and I think it was absolutely because of my mime training that I was chosen for Hellraiser. So you
Right.
could say Stephen Berkoff set me on, because Clive is fascinated by mime,
Oh God,
and
yeah.
I think a lot of the received wisdom at the time was that people who had mime training had a better sense of stillness, and they could take the makeup process. How wrong they were when it came to me. But hey,
And I've always thought
so
that I just think that Berkoff, who's just an extraordinary actor, would just make a wonderful baddie. I mean, he's
mm,
played baddies obviously, but having him in a Hellraiser movie, in a proper Hellraiser movie, would just be
oh,
extraordinary.
wouldn't
Absolutely
he?
amazing.
I'm going to say something really outrageous. He would have made a fabulous Pinhead, wouldn't he?
He made a wonderful. He'd have made
Don't
an
tell
extraordinary.
Doug.
I won't tell Doug. I won't tell Ken. I was actually thinking Dr. Channard as well. I
Oh,
mean, Ken,
yeah,
just
yeah,
be amazing. But
yeah.
just he's extraordinary. All right, as I'm going to have to hurry you slightly. We're going to
Sure,
move
sure.
on to your. Again, this is another show I had not heard of before. So this is City of
Yes,
Angels,
yes.
with music by Cy Coleman, lyrics by David Zippel, and book by Larry Galbert. Tell us about
Right.
this.
Okay, well, Cy Coleman was responsible for Sweet Charity. It's like
Okay.
see me now, da 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 da.
I knew
Yeah.
that song and dance in this.
Okay, Larry Gebert was responsible for the screenplay for Tootsie, one of my favorite films, Dustin Hoffman,
Uh-huh.
and he also was had the idea for creating for TV MASH, the TV series. Then he comes
Ah.
up with this idea of doing a film noir musical, and the stage is split into half. One side is in color, and the other side is in black and white. And the actors are all wearing black and white makeup. And black. I mean, it's funny what you were just saying about Strangers on a Train.
Uh-huh.
The music wasn't that memorable, but I thought the production was fabulous, and it's always stayed with me. And of course, you can say, "Oh, West Side Story," or another favorite of mine is Moulin Rouge. It always makes me cry. I think it's a brilliant idea. It took 6 years for the director, whose name escapes me, to
Baz
get it
Luhrmann.
up.
Moulin Rouge, is that Baz Luhrmann?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it took him 6 years to get permission for all the songs. There's some wonderful musicals out there, and I love them all. But I think this one stuck in my head for its sheer audaciousness.
Okay. Okay. When I was doing some research, I was looking it up and came across a Michael Billington review of it, a revival recently, and he said it's always, one of the great things about this show is to remind people that musicals can and possibly should be funny.
And possibly entertain as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's one definitely one to keep a lookout. Now, again, your next choice, I didn't get to see this. I had, and I'm hoping that I've got the right slide and the right production. And this is A Walk in the Woods by Lee Blessing.
That's it.
That's it.
Yep.
Tell us about this.
Okay. Two diplomats meet in the woods outside of Geneva or Zurich or something. It's in Switzerland somewhere. One's an American diplomat played by Edward Herman. You will note him, remember him, he's a character actor, he's been in everything. And the other one is a Russian played by Alec Guinness. And it is hilarious and brilliant and very political. And it's all about the realistic, the realism of politics. And it's funny because it's the American who's like, oh, wow, and the Russian is, of course, this is so crap, you understand. But, it's always stood in my mind because I'm sitting there in the audience going, I'm watching Alec Guinness on stage, wow, 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 wow. And you never, he's so wonderful. There's this little moment when he's sitting on a log or something, and he's playing with the creases in his trousers, like making them dance. It's just when the other guy's talking, I go, oh, you shameless scene stealer. But it was just delightful performance by both guys. It's a two-hander, and it was just adorable. And I've seen some wonderful plays along the way and extraordinary performances. But that one sticks out because, it was watching a legend on stage. It was just wonderful.
I know. The closest I've ever come, I watched John Gielgud play Caesar in Julius Caesar at the National Theatre. I remember that so vividly. I never got to see Olivier, and I just kicked myself for years for never actually going to see Alec Guinness in it. Just a quick aside, you did. And what is your favourite Shakespeare play?
Oh, Richard III, because he's a psychopath. But actually, I'm a great fan of Richard III, and actually, one of my term papers in university was Shakespeare, a political yes man. And all the historical stuff sort of said that Richard III was actually a very popular ruler, and that he was just hard done by those dastardly tutors that came in afterwards, who basically rewrote history.
Yeah.
And Shakespeare was writing for the tutors, so he made him into a baddie, just like he made Macbeth into a baddie.
I mean, basically, Shakespeare was writing at a time where if you didn't write what the Queen liked, you could end up in the Tower of London.
Yes, off with their
It was
heads.
very, very
Yeah.
straightforward. You know, here's your choice. You write what we want you to write.
Well, it's interesting because, sorry,
Yeah.
it's, when you look at a crime, it's like, who benefits?
Mm,
Because the princes in the tower were basically proved to be illegitimate. Richard had nothing to fear from them. The
mm,
only person that would have anything to fear for their existence is Henry Tudor, the one who came
yeah,
after Richard.
yeah,
So who benefits? So
yeah. It obviously was the ancestor of Elizabeth Tudor, so you're not really going to
exactly. But
try
it's
and
a
promulgate
cracking. Richard III is a cracking bit of good writing, as is Macbeth. So.
And if you've ever seen Peter Sellers doing It's a Hard Day's Night in the style of Laurence Olivier playing Richard III, I do recommend. Have you
Oh
never
no,
seen that?
I've
It's a
seen A Hard
hard
Day's Night.
day's night, and I'd be sleeping like a log. It's brilliant. You have to have seen the Richard III done by Olivier to actually get all the jokes, but it's Peter Sellers doing It's a Hard Day Night by the Beatles in the style of Laurence
Well,
Olivier
you
playing
should
Richard
ask
III.
you should ask Tim Dry to do his Richard III meets Sooty.
I will remember that when we get to speak. That sounds like fun. Yeah,
And
okay.
he will never forgive me for saying this.
I'll check with him first then. And moving you on to the next one, because
Okay.
I'm conscious of the time. I knew this was going to happen, folks. I do apologize to everybody. We may go over the hour just slightly. This is your first choice in terms of art. This is Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. Why
Yes.
this one?
Well, because I'm a big fan of the Da Vinci Code.
Rock on, go
And
on.
rock on, and I love this really tacky TV show that's made in the UK in Wales and has been a hit all over the world except for the United States and the UK, called Da Vinci's Demons. And it's
Written
all
by
about a young Da Vinci. Yeah, it's really worth seeing, actually, the first series especially.
Mm,
I've always been fascinated by Leonardo da Vinci. I read a book that posited that he was a time-traveling modern man from the 40s, going back into time, and that's why it was a mirror time machine he went through, and that's why he could write mirror writing, which he could actually do, which is very
yeah.
strange. I went to see exhibition of only his drawings at the Hayward Gallery in the late 80s. And I staggered out going, that man never had an unproductive minute. It's all these drawings, these notebooks of his. It was what a mind, what a genius. And I just chose that one particular one, but I'm a huge Da Vinci fan.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, Da Vinci is also credited as having discovered cholesterol because
Really?
yeah, but of course it was suppressed because he wasn't allowed to actually cut up cadaver and do all that
Oh
stuff.
gosh,
All those
no.
drawings, no
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
But he said, there is something in the blood that is thickening it. Yes, extraordinary.
Cool.
Right, so we will go on to your next choice. Bear with me whilst I try and sort out the relevant buttons and we're coming back to Mr. Tim Dry again.
Yes.
I don't know if this is the correct title, Tim. I just took it.
Yeah. No, that's basically, it's not just a photograph. It
Mhm.
is a collage and a layering of paint, and it is the most extraordinary piece of art. I've got this thing about angels and demons, angels to some, demons to others, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and that's just one example of his extraordinary art and his photographs. And I think he's one of those guys that can do a lot of things. And he would say, oh gosh, I can't concentrate on one thing. He calls it his magpie mind. But I think, magpie mind, that, I can just about draw Snoopy. That's my
Hey, it's
one
a
thing I
talent.
can do. Hey, but my brother is a brilliant cartoonist. My mother was an artist, and I can draw Snoopy. And so anybody who can do stuff like that, I'm full of admiration for it.
Yeah, no, I'm always amazed. I love his music and
Yeah.
some of the videos he posts as well. Son of Nosferatu is very good.
It's
Um,
wonderful. It's
it,
wonderful.
with the wonderful Rula Lenska in it as well. And I'm going to choose you now. This one, this is I'm what the hell? Who? Now, tell me about Artemisia.
Okay,
Gentileschi.
Artemisia, right? Artemisia was, I wrote this down because she's so interesting. Okay, this is a fantastically bloodthirsty painting. She was a 17th century painter, and she was the first woman to ever be accepted into the Florence's Academy of Art, right?
Uh-huh.
Now, her subjects were often very strong women repelling violent men.
Uh-huh.
And she was actually raped, and the rapist promised to murder her. And he was supposed to be teaching her painting and stuff, and he raped her, and then said, "Listen, you know, keep on coming to see me, and I'll promise to marry you." And he didn't, so she got royally pissed off. She said, "What have I been putting up with?" She tells her dad. Her dad goes ballistic, and he actually there is a trial, and she is tortured with thumb screws to make sure that and examined medically to make sure she's telling the truth, that she was a virgin before this thing on. And the guy got done. And she was, you know, what was I saying? That she was successful in prosecuting her rapist, almost unheard of in the 17th century. And her art now is actually considered on a par with Caravaggio, I can never say his name, she was like, she really admired his work and his lighting effects and stuff. So I mean, what a character!
Looking at that picture, I'm sorry, I'm just going to share the picture again, actually.
We see Caravaggio did the same subject, but his Judith, killing Holofernes, she looks like she's filleting a particularly unpleasant bit of fish. She's like being,
well, I mean, this is
she's like really going for it, girl.
She's really going for it, and I'm the folds of the cloth and the strength and
the lighting.
The lighting. No, you're absolutely right. I can see why you're comparing her to Caravaggio. That is extraordinary, absolutely amazing. And do you know where that one happened? Which gallery that one happens to be in? I don't know why I'm asking. We can look this up online. We have this thing called the internet.
Yes, and also it is one of my serial killer's favorite paintings because he's an art historian. So.
The moment I saw this choice, I thought, did you know it before you did the research, or did this come out as part of the research for Venus Complex?
It did, actually, yeah. As my next choice, I'm afraid.
And speaking of your next choice, this is, again, I looked at this and I thought, the ecstasy of Saint Teresa. Now, I'm not quite sure what her ecstasy is supposed to see, but what I'm seeing is ecstasy, but possibly not I have no idea about this.
Okay,
Tell us about this one.
It's this little angel's coming down, and he's like probing her heart with an arrow. And she's, I mean, if you did a close-up on her face, I mean, she's like in rapture. Now, this is by, I was going to find, I think it's about the same time. Gian Lorenzo
Bernini. Yeah,
Bernini.
Lorenzo Bernini.
Yeah, and he basically nearly beat his brother to death because he was trying to pick up his girlfriend and stuff. So he was a violent and yet very religious man. But he was a bit of a dodgy character too, like they all were. I mean, Caravaggio, Da Vinci, they're always running away from, So, but this is, I remember watching this on Lord Kenneth Clark's, I think it was, not Kenneth Clark, whatever, Civilization, a program called Civilization.
Kenneth Clark, Kenneth Clark, Civilization.
And thinking, whoa, and I'm like 12 going, that doesn't look right to me. She looks like she's having too much fun, considering it's a religious statue. And also, it's in Angels and Demons, which is the sequel to the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a wonderful statue, and it's beautifully executed. It's a perfect work of art. You know, I've got a million other works of art I love, but I just find that one kind of amusing because everybody goes, "Oh, wow, she's in religious ecstasy." And the first time I saw it, and I went, "Hmm, it looks like another kind of ecstasy." But hey, that's just me.
Okay, that seems fair enough. Although I have to say, I looked at it and I thought that's Eros. That's not a little angel. That's Eros that we're looking at there. So before we move on to actually, there is one thing, which is to say, we're going to run late, folks. We'll probably be about another 15 minutes or so if Barb is still able to do this. As we've got a few more of these to work through, and we've had some questions come in, Barbie, whilst we've been doing it, which I'd like to try and get to as well, although we'll probably have to be brief, folks. Sure. This is your favourite piece of furniture, which, as I say, when I looked at this, I thought this is just an ironic choice.
Why?
Well, just because I knew that this was likely to run over, basically.
Oh, yes.
But tell us about this. This just looks wonderful.
It's a little coffee table that's got a big clock in it. And normally, I mean, I would show you. It probably won't come out if I show you. But normally, they've got martinis on this. You know, I chose the coffee because it looked more grown up. I should show them with martinis. But we've always dreamed. My partner and I have always dreamed of having a big clock coffee table. I don't know, is it because we're both Aquarians and Aquarians are obsessed by timepieces? I don't know. But we just came upon it in this little furniture store, and it was like, wow, it's just the coolest thing ever. And so every time I do anything promoting the book, promoting Bad Medicine, I'm always huddled around this table, and people go, wow, cool coffee table. So they may not remember the book, but they'll remember the coffee table.
Does the clock actually work?
Yes, it does, although I think it's not working at the moment. No.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, well that
it just needs a little battery.
I love it.
It is a working clock. It is a working clock.
I've seen it before, and as you say, when you're promoting books and so on, I've always been fascinated by it. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so the last 4 questions. What favourite food would you take into the afterlife with you?
There's only one, and it's corn chips and margarita. That is one food group. Corn chips and margaritas.
Okay, one food. Yeah, no, I can see a geographical, food group thing. Corn chips and margaritas. Okay, you've got those. What costume would you be like? I would like
to be buried, or no, we buried it. Yeah. Christopher Lee's cloak from The Horror of Dracula. Although I'm sure it'll be far too long for me.
So just say that one slowly for me again.
Okay, Christopher Lee's cloak that he wore as Dracula in The Horror of Dracula. But I'm sure it'd be much too long for me.
Considering he's 6'6", he was very tall.
Yes.
Tall, dark, and gruesome, as they used to say,
yes.
Of Christopher Lee in those roles. And it constantly echoes Bela Lugosi, who was buried in his cloak. That wasn't Bela's idea, I discovered recently. It was his child and his wife. His son and his wife decided, when they were doing the funeral, they just thought it was fitting that he should be buried in his cloak. And this was actually their idea, which I love. I just think that's terribly, terribly, terribly sweet. And you're right. Okay, so the last question I have is an apologia. Would you have an apologia? If you're standing in front of the gates, you can see the gates are closed, you can see the pink fluffy clouds, and you can see the palm trees, but they're not going to open the gates until you say, this is why I should come in.
I put this wrong. I
may have explained it wrong. You say you say what you...
First, I would need to know the charges laid before me. Second, I would have to plead the fifth, as they do in all American good cocktail dramas. And anyway, it's a celestial court. I don't believe in any stinking celestial courts. However, this is what I would say.
Uh-huh.
Okay, it's a quote. Okay, and I'll be brief or fast. But we were not born of risen apes, but we were born of risen apes, not fallen angels, and the apes were armed killers besides. And so what shall we wonder at? Our murders and massacres and missiles, and our unreconcilable regiments, or our treaties, whatever they may be worth, our symphonies, however seldom they may be played, our peaceful acres, however frequently they may be converted into battlefields, our dreams, however rarely they may be accomplished. The miracle of man is not how far he has sunk, but how magnificently he has risen. We are known amongst the stars by our poems, not our corpses.
And who's that?
That is by Robert Ardley, who wrote Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, which was a film with Glenn Ford, and Khartoum, which was a film with Charlton Heston. But he also wrote a book called African Genesis about how we evolved from the apes to man. What a guy!
Wow. It's
so you should know about
that is absolutely gorgeous. I can definitely say the gates are opening for you. If you go and sit on your pink fluffy cloud with the palm trees. And as you're sitting there, is there anything that you can think back on that you would go back and do differently?
Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. Basically, I try not to look back because it's kind of pointless. I'm an obsessional person, and I do so much hand-wringing and going, oh, if only I should have done this. And so I really try hard and go, you know, here I am right now, and I look towards the future, and I really try hard not to sort of, you know, think what would I've done differently if I'd done that. And my father used to say this all the time, onwards and upwards. So going back and doing something differently, to be honest, not really.
No. Brilliant.
It's
Barbie,
okay.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Now, before I let you go, we have had some questions come in.
Okay.
And they are interesting. So I'm going to, now we're not going to get to all these questions, folks. I'd just like to explain for those of you that have joined. I have to put my glasses on for this point, and my camera has to refocus, just so I can read the screen properly. You'll notice there aren't the normal number of people at the bottom of the screen because I knew this was going to be myself and Barbie answering this, doing this interview for the majority of this. So in the next 10 minutes, we are going to answer the questions that have been, as many as possible, the questions that have been asked in the Q&A app. And this is from Vicky Lowe, who says, how has your previous work, especially with shock, influenced your approach to playing the female Cenobite? And have you fallen victim to any behind-the-scenes pranks during the filming of Hellbound, being new to the Hellraiser family?
Oh, well, I think, you know, the only thing that being in shock helped with was being behind the scenes, because I used to sing songs from Cabaret to entertain everybody. Do you remember?
I do, and the video is online.
And the video is online on YouTube. I don't know, pranks. I think we're all too exhausted to pull pranks on each other. Do you remember pranks?
I don't, to be honest, because as you say, to be honest, it was so intense. People were working so very many long hours. We didn't have the time.
No, I think one thing that was really adorable is how welcoming everybody was to somebody who hadn't been in number one. You know, I was the new girl on the block, but so was Ken. But then again, Ken was Ken Cranham, you know, but everybody was just treated in the same way, you know. It's just, and everybody's very welcoming and friendly. But you know, people have to remember we had like 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning calls. We were in makeup for 4 to 6 hours or costume. Then we had to wait another 6 hours to get in front of the camera. So we didn't have any energy to play on each other.
I completely and utterly echo that. But that was a great question. Thank you very much indeed, Vicky. Just to say, would you? Right. This is from David McCulley. I think we've answered this one before, actually. Hi, Nicholas. Hi, Barbie. Would you ever take up your roles as chatterer and female Cenobite? We'll both snort.
Well, you know, of course, in a New York Minute. You know, I mean, up until this year, before I was asked to star in this movie, I just thought acting, you know, you get to a certain age, especially as a woman, and acting leaves you behind. The phone stops ringing and stuff. If somebody wanted me to play the female Cenobite again, of course I would play it. They'd have to let out the seams of the costume, but a little bit. But I think, of course, but you know, it's probably going to be Lindsay Lohan or Scarlett Johansson or somebody.
No,
you know,
absolutely.
what has to, you know, you have to look at the economic realities of the film business. The film business is about power and it's about making money, and it's about getting the bums on seats. And they'll, you know, I can see why they would want to get, you know, certain big stars to make it, you know, a big splash. You know, or not. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's going through anybody's minds as far as the remake is concerned. I would be delighted to reprise my role, or indeed any role they would want to give me. But, you know, I don't know what your feelings are about this, Nick.
Yeah, same as you. If Clive asked me, I'd leap off a cliff. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it has
I wouldn't leap off a cliff.
I'm assuming he might give me a parrot. Oh, as Clive said frequently during the filming of Hellraiser, and he probably quoted it again in Hellbound. You shouldn't have joined if you couldn't take a joke. When I was complaining about something or other. Cool, that's David's question answer. I'm just going to do a couple of more of these guys, just because I'm conscious we're now at 8:10. And this question is from Rob Shepherd for Barbie and Nicholas. After having been a part of the Hellraiser franchise for so long, how much or how many characteristics, if any, of your Cenobites have found their way into characters you create in your own stories?
Okay, well, for me, anyway, I was asked to write a story about a female Cenobite, not the female Cenobite, for legal reasons, for the Hellbound Hearts anthology. That was in 2009, and that was my first horror story that I'd written, because as far as I'm concerned, the Venus Complex, although it's considered horror, is crime, psychological crime, or dark crime. So I suppose I had to like channel a little bit of Cenobite-ness into that story, but you know, we had to take our inspiration from the Hellbound Heart, Clive's original novella. So that was wonderful. And you know, when I wrote the sequel, the Silesian Pandoric, you know, again, it was from that. I think it's more from Clive's original book than the actual playing a Cenobite. I don't know. People really understand the whole process of being in a movie. It is so much waiting around. Then you come and all of a sudden you're surrounded by dry ice and you do your thing, and then whoop, you're back in the dressing room, you know, having a cup of coffee. It's not as sexy as the movie appears when it's all cut together. When you're reading a book with Clive, that you're there with him at every moment. It's a very disjointed process, acting in movies, which is why I think a lot of actors like going on, like Kevin Spacey, say, loves doing theater, because you have the full experience every night, 3 hours or 2 hours of living that character. So is that a good answer? I'm not quite sure if that's
I think that's a great answer, and it's interesting because of course I went on to write Hellraiser comics, as well as before I did the Hellbound Heart also. But as I say, I think I mean, my main impression of playing the Chatterer was claustrophobia. I haven't actually written anything about claustrophobia. I probably really should.
You really should.
I really should, because really, it was a very claustrophobic experience playing the Chatterer.
Yeah. But you know, in a funny way, it was for me too, because this stuff was glued onto my face, and it was claustrophobic. I felt like nothing could breathe on me. And I always felt like it was almost like a suffocating experience being in the makeup. You know, like Shirley Eaton in Goldfinger. I should have
Yeah.
like this bare patch at the back of my spine. You know, she gets covered in gold paint. Yeah, yeah. Not quite as sexy. Anyway.
Cool. All right. So
Hi.
hi. That's beautifully timed. Thank you, Jose. Uh,
Hi.
the reason I've asked Jose and invited him in specifically, I'm not ignoring the rest of you guys. I really am trying to do as many of these questions as I possibly can. The reason that poor Jose wrote down, my 2 questions keep disappearing. Here they are again. And then there's nothing. So I can't see any either of you. So Jose, please ask your 2 questions. And then I think actually these are going to be the last 2 questions, guys.
Oh, I apologize for that. I'm still rather new to this Google Hangout on air. I'll try to be brief. My 2 questions were, one was for Barbie, and let's see, kind of put me on the spot. I'm trying to remember my questions because they keep disappearing.
I am just evil, really. God, putting you on the spot.
Indeed. For Barbie, being a classically trained mime actress, did you happen to meet Clive Barker during the casting process for Hellbound? And what kind of direction did Tony Randell give you on set?
Well, when I did the audition, it was with Tony. Clive was prepping Nightbreed, and he wasn't going to direct, and so I met with Tony. And I think the only reason I got it is I knew what the word Cenobite meant, and he didn't. He said it was a word Clive made up, and I said, no, it's actually in the dictionary. And he probably had never met an actress before who sort of contradicted him. I don't know. So it was, and then his assistant went, no, Barbie's right, and so I got the part. But you know, I think I've mentioned this before in interviews. I had been late coming in because I'd left on the Saturday. I'd been visiting my state friends and my family in the States, and my plane got delayed 24 hours. So I actually arrived the day I was supposed to be on set. And so I came in, I'd been awake all night, and then the makeup process, and at 6 o'clock in the evening, I'd been up, like, I don't know, 48 or 36 hours, I met Tony for the first time. And he might have come in during the makeup process, I can't remember. And I sort of staggered up to him and said, Tony, what's my motivation? And I still can't believe I was so embarrassing to ask that pathetic question. And he just went, you're dead, Barbie. And I almost felt like everyone was hating me because they were so scared. You know, where's Barbie? Where's Barbie? Why can't we get in touch with her? You know, they tried to call. I was stuck in Toronto. So I think, okay, I'm dead. Yeah, and that was my motivation. But it was easy to feel dead after being awake for 36 hours. So.
Well, thank you very much for the answer.
Just one other thing. The first scene I appeared in was the first scene the Cenobites appeared in when Shannard and Julia are looking at Tiffany doing the thing. And so I'm entering with all the dry ice and all these creatures that I actually hadn't seen much of before. So it was actually quite an eerie experience being on set doing that scene.
Yeah. And I guess my other second question was for Nico. I was thinking about the luggage in the crypt and how it reminded me of Bernard Pivot's Bouillon de Couture when he asks his guests like 10 questions. I would like to ask you one of his questions, which is, what turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
That's a very good question, and these are the questions that are used in the Actors Studio interviews. Regularly used there. Yes, I thought I recognized that one, which is
by James Lipton.
Yeah. I'm just going to mute you for a moment, Jose, just because we're hearing you. We're getting an echo of my answer, so you are still there, and we can see you. What turns me on creative spirit? You know what? I think it's talent. The talent of other people. I get very, very excited when I meet talented people. Ridiculously, I always just become complete fanboy and just fall apart. But it's true. Barb's been with me when this has happened. Recently, Barbie and I had the great joy of meeting the Soska sisters, Jen and Sylvia. We've met them twice now. We've had Cenobite breakfasts together, which we both really massively enjoyed. These are just very talented young ladies. That really excites me, and I think it's it's the same when I'm reading stuff or if I'm watching a movie. If I watch something that is really good, really interesting, it starts lighting things up in my brain. I think, okay, he told this story this way, but what if he'd done it that way, or what if that question, and that tends to get me going. And I think that what
I think it's really so exciting seeing people like the Soskas who are very determined, and they're very talented, and they're very inventive, and they're just fearless because they, it's not an easy, life for women in the film business, and they just have just persevering and being audacious, and that's inspiring. I find it inspiring, and they're great fun as well. But yes, talent is a great turn on. You're absolutely right.
Absolutely. Okay, Jose, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to leave you muted for the moment. Just whilst there is actually one more question, which I will finish with. For those of you who weren't able to get your questions answered, to apologise. They are mostly questions about will we be going to a Rue Morgue in 2015. That's always a big question to do with the promoters and the deal that can be done, etc., etc. I know Barbie and I would both love to go to a Rue Morgue con.
Is that in Toronto?
That's the one in Toronto. I believe that's the one, BC, Canada, for our Fanbo Rue Morgue show in April 2015.
Okay, okay. I just need to point something out, that like the Soskas and Tristan Risk and a bunch of people, I am from a proud person from BC, Canada. I would love to go to Vancouver because I haven't been there in about 25 years.
And I would like to go there because my grandfather fought on the side of the Canadians in the First World War. He was British.
Kidding.
No, he didn't. That's how he got back from Canada in 1914.
My grandfather fought for the British, and he's Canadian in World War I.
I never knew that.
Isn't that wonderful? He was a World War I flying ace, my granddad.
Oh, my grandfather, bless his little cotton socks, was just in the trenches. But he did get a medal. I've got the correspondence.
He got shot down twice.
Yeah.
It's not so great being in an airplane.
No, not particularly those kind of paper and string things. The very last question, which I'm going to... this comes from D. Christopher, who doesn't have his... and this is, ever wonder how many licks it really takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? I have no idea what a Tootsie Pop is.
Sorry, I do.
Does. This is probably for you North Americans. I have no idea what the Tootsie Pop is.
To be honest, I would always get far too impatient, and it was a disgusting thing on a stick. It's like, a lolly, a hard candy, and inside was this bit of totally chewy, chocolatey, almost like a taffy that your fillings would come out because it was so chewy, and and I would try and crunch the hard candy to get to the chewy bits, which is probably why I had 13 cavities when I was 13 years old, because I was addicted. Well, I didn't like them because they were so painful, but I was addicted to banana popsicles. You see, this is the problem. You got to get kids don't have that sweet stuff,
No, and I'm just going to. Yes, I'm talking now. I don't know if you can actually see this. Actually, I think you can see this. So this is a Tootsie Pop. This is a gift that I was given when I was in Texas, and this is a scorpion inside a lolly. I haven't quite yet got round to eating it yet, and kind of probably won't.
That's Renee's present.
It's Renee's present, yeah, absolutely. Listen, guys, it's now 8:20. As I suspected, that clock piece of furniture was totally perspicacious of Barbie to choose that one because we've gone over. Thank you very much indeed. I know we've actually had more viewers than we've ever had before on the Hangout. We've gone up to about 18 viewers, and I know there will be a lot more viewers on the recorded. And don't forget that I will be making this available as a podcast only for the sound I'll probably work on that I will work on that tomorrow. So by tomorrow evening, that will be on my website, www.nicholasvince.com. Click on the Hangout tab, and you will be able to download the sound file. So you can listen to it in the car. It'll be an MP3. Remind you about Barbie's book, The Venus Complex, to remind you about the movie Bad Medicine, which she is going to be starring in. She's desperately trying to pick up pieces of paper to show you. Look at Facebook. The links will all be there. Jose, thank you for coming on and answering your question.
Could I just say thank you so much, Nicholas, for being such a wonderful interviewer. I've really, really enjoyed our chat, and I suppose it was inevitable that two chatterbugs like the two of us would run over.
Yeah, I think people might have expected that. And we had songs, we had snorting, we had, yeah, absolutely.
I snorted.
And I would just like to quote back Barbie, one of her lines that she said, which I found very comforting. You actually said, Barbie, I will probably never kill anyone. I'm really glad you probably won't. Good night, folks. Thanks very much. This has been Chattering with Nicholas Vince, and I've been chattering with Barbie Wilde. Good night.
Bye,
have a great
everybody.
evening. And I'll see you in September with Simon and Facino Evils. Take care, guys. Good night.